Hey guys, welcome to this next lecture. In this one, I'll show you the basics of texturing an object with procedural texturing. We'll also discuss how to use seamless textures to quickly texture a model in our scene. So I've got the same basic setup I did in the last section, and in this one we are going to go ahead and I've gotten rid of the texture that we generated there, and I've gotten rid of the material, so we're back to just basically a render of a cube on a plane. So let's get building. First thing I'm going to do is generate another material. And again, we're going to kind of leave these settings the way they are for now. And let's come over to this texture panel and talk about how to bring in a procedural map. So we're going to go ahead and create a new one. Call this wood texture. And instead of type being clouds, we're going to change this to image or movie. Now this is going to allow us to load an image in place of the texture, and then we can use that to tweak as a base for our texture settings. So let's go down to image and open. Okay, so now I've navigated to our procedural texturing directory for this lecture. And I've downloaded this seamless tile image of a wood texture off the internet, off of cgtextures.com. And you can go in there and get a lot of textures for free. So I've imported this, and if we just render the way it is now, you can see that it works on the top surface relatively well, but then it starts stretching on the sides. So here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to go down to mapping, and we're going to change this projection here from flat to cube. And because of the type of model we have, if we have this set to cube, it's going to change the way that it tries to wrap this automatically around the object. Now this works really well for objects that are, obviously like the objects listed here under mapping. So for flat objects like a plane, you could use flat. Spheres, obviously, a sphere. Cube, whatever, and again, you're pretty limited in the way that you can generate maps and project them. So this works really well for simple objects. For more complex ones, we'll have to get into UV mapping, which we'll talk about next. So once we've got this projection set to cube, and we've got this going here, we're obviously going to let this affect the color so that we get this this kind of wood texture here. Now this is a tiled texture, so if we want to change this to be a bit smaller with more boards, then we can change that, and now we've got more, or we can go less and kind of make that half the size of the original, and now we've got kind of big pieces. Now bear in mind, you're going to have some alignment issues here, which you can try to tweak with these offset values. So if you change this, you are going to get some differences in where these are lining up. Again, you just have to play with these settings to see where that's going to happen, and can try to line that up differently. So you can see that moved a little bit for us, but essentially you're going to be pretty limited on the kinds of controls that you have here. So anyways, we got this going here with the color slider turned on. Again, we can use this to affect specularity, bump, the kind of ambient shading we've got going on, and all the things like that. So if we turn the normal on, usually you'd want a black and white image to affect certain things, but if you turn that on, put it down to something low, you can see we've already got a little bit of this bumping going on here. I'm going to turn this back up to 1 so we're not using stretched values. And so it's a little better alignment there. Let's turn this up to 0.25 to see what happens. Alright, so you can kind of see we got a little bit better thing going on here. Now, one of the things I'm going to mention that you can do also is subdivide this cube up to where there's quite a bit of geometry. And if you uncheck normal and instead click on displace, it's going to try to use the geometry that you've got to displace based on the texture. So if you've got a really high-res mesh that you want to use, that can really come in handy when you're trying to generate something like terrain or something based on a displacement map. And so what I would do probably here is you can add a subdivision surface. Again, it's going to slow things down quite a bit, but if you're just going after a really specific look with the way that's working, then again, you can try this for the displacement, and again, it will slow down quite a bit, but as you can see, you can get some really distorted effects. And the difference is normal is going to distort just the flat surface to give it the illusion of depth within these cracks here. If you actually applied the displace map with the displacement modifier that you see under this menu, then right here, then what you're going to get is the same effect that you see over here with the texture that we've generated, but it's actually going to write that information into the geometry and distort it permanently. So if we turn this down to something a little more manageable, like 0.1, 0.05, something like that, and then turn our normal back on. So you can see here you can get kind of a combined effect of distorting the geometry as well as distorting the surface itself with the illusion of depth on that bump map, and it gives you a nice quick texture that is you know, built for speed, and can really help if you're in a pinch and you need to generate a texture fast. So that's pretty much it for procedural texturing. Again, you just come in here and play with the setting depending on the texture that you've loaded. This is a great way to generate, you know, quick textures for crates or objects that are going to be in the background of your scenes. You know, things that aren't going to be hero objects in your scenes are good things to use procedural texturing on because it uses less memory. And if you want something that's more custom, that's when UV mapping comes in. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So in the next lecture, I'm going to get into UV mapping, and it's going to allow you to do those custom painted textures on any surface and get you really specific results that you're after for your models. So we'll go over that next.